Hi, I'm Maya from Book from Dreams and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to talk about all the books I read in the month of January. Here are some stats. So in the month of January I read 10 books. Of those 10 books, 4 were on my team. I read 5 fantasy books, 3 science fiction books, 1 romance and 1 horror book. I started 2 series which I will continue, and I caught up to 1 series, which is good. Of all the books I've read, 4 were audiobooks and 6 were physical reads. I did have a secret projecting plan, which I mentioned in my January TBR, but that did not happen at all, because time just... So I will postpone it to a later time. So I'll talk about the books I've read from my least favorite to my favorite book that I've read in January. So let's just start. So the least favorite book I read this month is The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. I read this for the Buzzword Reading Challenge. The prompt was life or death. When I read the summary of this book, I knew that it wasn't going to be something that I would enjoy, because I thought the whole thing was going to be like a whole lot of mindfuckery, and I don't really jive with that. But it turned out to be different. It turned out to be... we basically follow 2 characters. One of which is a young caver. Her job is to... do spelunking, is that how you say it? Anyway, go into caves and you know, on a foreign planet to, you know, help whatever corporation or whatever the mission is to do stuff. I don't know. So the woman we follow, she basically applies for this job. She lies to get this job because she wants to leave the planet to find her mom, to get money to find her mom, whatnot. And she is part of this 2-person operation. It turns out that you have her and her handler, I guess, the person who's on the surface making sure that her suit is correct, that she follows instructions for the job, and you know, from the beginning. My problem was that, first of all, everyone is so unprofessional. I found that this is like a pet peeve of mine. I don't like it when people are unprofessional in what they're supposed to be doing in the story, and I was so frustrated by that. The whole operation, I mean, the caver didn't really read the manual for the spacesuit that she's wearing, that she's supposed to live in for the next couple of months while she does this job. And they were just all so emotional, the caver and the handler, both of them basically working on their familial trauma, and it was so frustrating. I mean, there was a creepy atmosphere. The author did create a creepy atmosphere, but the characters and their actions ruined everything, because we went from like this power imbalance between our caver and the handler, because the handler was very much, I'm not going to tell you anything, you just have to listen to my commands, I'm not going to like explain stuff. And it went from that kind of antagonistic relationship to basically, I don't know what I would do without you if you died in a cave, like all the other people I sent down to die in a cave. It was so... I don't know, I did not like the characters. I did not, you know, it was just, yeah, it wasn't a fun read. The next, a bit higher up, but still not good, book that I read was one by Grace Draven, which was so disappointing. So I read Phoenix Unbound. This book I read for the Reddit's Fantasy Bingo Challenge. The prompt was to read something that has a revolution or rebellion in it. So we follow 2 characters, a dude who works as a gladiator, and he participates in this yearly event where basically the kingdom takes a bunch of women and burns them like witches for reasons. And the man discovers that there's this woman that keeps coming back year after year. She does disguise herself with her magic, but he can see through her. And he's like, okay, so you have power, you're going to help me escape. And you're going to help me get back my, it's not a kingdom. They are a nomadic people. So they have like their, whatever, territories and whatnot. So he was betrayed and sold into slavery by his cousin so he can take over power. So he wants the power back. And, you know, it's supposed to be like a fantasy romance. It goes from, you know, hate to lust to love to whatnot. It was so mediocre. It was so forgettable. I can't even tell you, like, I remember distinctly that, you know, the female main character hated the guy for like so long, until one time she saw him without his shirt on. And like, oh, he's physically attractive. He might not be so bad as I thought he was. So yeah, and the romance was lackluster, and it was just all so basic. And I was so surprised because I was like, but it's Grace Driven, and I don't know what happened with this book. But yeah, did not like this one. The next book I want to talk about is Hold by Claire Kent. This I saw someone on a booktube, romance booktube, mention a couple of times, and I wanted to check it out. It is my first sort of prison world romance, and I've discovered that those are not for me. Basically, in this world, we follow, what's the girl's name? Rihanna, and she finds herself in this prison world, prison colony, for doing basically nothing, for trespassing. And the advice she's given by one of the guards before she's dumped in this world is basically to find the strongest man there and basically exchange her body for protection, and that's what she does. And from there on, apparently a romance blossoms, and stuff happens. I did not enjoy this because the constant threat of violence and rape was not conducive for a romantic atmosphere, in my opinion. And yeah, I read it. The smutty scenes were fine, but the overall plot and just general atmosphere was not something that I enjoyed. And now I discovered I don't do prison worlds, and I'm not going to continue reading stuff like that. Now to another disappointment. Last year when I was sick, I discovered L.M. Drew and her, God, I can't even pronounce it, God of Reeve series. Basically, this is a paranormal romance series in which we follow each of the 4 books that are out follow a different plus size heroine that basically finds herself in this magical town and starts hooking up with one of the pack members of this wolf shifter pack, right? So the first one I think is still my favorite one because it was the best, and this is the 4th one that I read, and that is called Return to God or whatever the name of the town is. I was so looking forward to this. I was so excited, and then I read it, and it was so disappointing. First of all, it was different than the previous 3 books, as in how when you have a romance series, there's like a formula that you follow, and if this formula is something that you jive with, then it's great. You just apply different characters in different situations, but the magic of the whole thing, in the writing and whatnot, is there. But here the formula changed, because in this one we follow Violet. So Violet is the daughter of the Pax Witch. Now when before the town went magical and hid itself from the world, there was a giant fire, and because Violet used to have some affinity with fire, Violet's mother thought that they would be blamed for the big fire that destroyed most of the pack, and basically ran away. And with that, she fucked the town. Before that, she fucked Violet's relationship with her mate, because when they were, I think Violet was like 12 or something when they ran away. When they were younger, she knew that she had a mate, and her mate Henrik knew that they were meant to be together. And to sort of protect them from each other, I guess, her mother cast a spell, and those two couldn't touch each other. And basically, after they ran away, they weren't able to find each other. And then the book starts with Violet. She works in a tattoo shop. She doesn't touch people or anything. She doesn't, because if she touches people, then she is in a lot of pain. And Henrik finds her after 15 years or whatnot of looking for her, and together they try to figure out how to fix what's going on between them, because they do know they're mates, and and at one point they go back to the town to try and help fix the town. The previous books have that sort of air of mystery between the couple, because one part of the couple doesn't know that they're in a magical relationship, and that they don't know that they are in a relationship with a paranormal creature, and they don't know the secrets and whatnot of the town. So the mystery of that is gone. The angst of this book was, because there is lots of angst in the first 3 ones. The angst of this one was basically figuring out how Violet and Henrik are going to get together. But I disliked Violet. From the beginning, I wasn't all that enamored with them or them as a couple. I didn't buy the main couple, and it was like, okay, whatever. And when they went back to the town, she has history with the town, and I understand that, but she was so unnecessarily mean to the girls that we meet in the first 3 books. And it was just, Ariana and Gina, and what was the other one? There's another one. And she was just so unnecessarily mean to them because of reasons. And also, the consequences for the mom witch were non-existent. That woman ruined so many lives, and the consequences were zero, and that was so frustrating for me. So yeah, and also it was all so very sappy. It was just constantly my mate, my Henrik, my soulmate, my Henrik, my mate, and it's just no. I was so disappointed, and I was like, okay, I read that for finishing a series also. Because there's an Aurelium a year-long challenge to like you have to read a prompt a year to like help your character out, whatnot. And the prompt I picked for my character was to finish a series, and this is book 4 in the series. When I started reading the series, there were only going to be 4 books, and when I finished this book, the author wrote in the afterword that there's going to be a couple of books more. But I'm considering this the end of the series because I don't think I will be so anticipating the next books in the series because the last 2 weren't really, I didn't like the last 2 so much. Then I read a fun a romance novella. I read a Catherine Moon book called Games with an Orc. In this short erotic novella, we follow a woman who just ended her she was in a 5-year relationship, and she discovered that she doesn't want to be married to this person because, of course, they propose in a public place, and I hate that. She just takes the time to basically find her groove, and she books a night with an orc in the Monster Smash or Mash agency, which is also the name of the whole series. So basically, she spends this whole week with an orc and exploring her sexuality, which was it was fun to read. It was a Catherine Moon book. What you expect from her writing is what you get, and it was a really great palate cleanser from all the crap that I read before that. So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. We'll continue on with the series when the new books come out. Level up of enjoyment from that was a book by Antonia Mejnovic, and that was What Do Nightmares Dream Of? This is a horror novella in which we follow Sanya, who basically figures out that there is a supernatural being in her apartment, Amora. This would be like a nightmare, a being that feeds on your, makes you dream, so that you can be, so they can feed on your fear and emotions and whatnot. It was a really, really cool book. I read it for the book club that I have with Christina and a bunch of friends. My favorite part of that story was the Slavic mythology elements. I really, really enjoyed those. And I also like how Sanya, the main character, dealt with her supernatural being. She was like, from the beginning, she was frightened until she figured out what that thing was. Then basically tried to make friends with it and figure out how to help, I guess, the person behind the nightmare. And yeah, it was a fun read. Before I get to my favorite book of the month, let's go through all the Ilona Andrews books that I read this month. I really enjoyed all of them, and apparently this is what happens. I don't read Ilona Andrews for the whole year, and then I read a bunch of her books in January. I found out at the end of December that there's a new Kate Daniels novella that's coming out in January, which was, oh my god, I had no idea. It was just such a cool surprise. I knew I was behind a couple of books in the general Kate Daniels world. I read the original series of 10 books. I read those. But there was one spin-off with Julie that I haven't read, and there was one spin-off with Hugh Dembray that I haven't read. So I read both of those. So I read Blood Heir. Basically, this is spoilers for the whole Kate Daniels series. So if you haven't read any, you might want to, I guess, look away or whatnot. So basically, in Blood Heir, we follow Julie. Julie is the adoptive daughter of Kate. And something happens at the end of book 10 that really affects Julie. And she goes away for reasons to learn more about her past and her, I guess, new situation. And she comes back to Atlanta because there's this ancient creature power that is trying to kill Kate because, she is all powerful and she can destroy everything. So she comes back to Atlanta to work on a couple of murders. It's a basic urban fantasy premise, especially with, if you read any of Ilona Andrews' books, then you know what's going to happen. You have a very cool case, interesting, and then you follow our character as they deal with the case, and then, meet all the very, very fun, supportive characters in this series. So, yeah, that's what happened here. I really, really liked it, and I really liked that there is, I guess, it's not a second chance romance because nothing happened in the previous series. But when she was younger, Julie had a crush on this wolf shifter Derek, and he also went away from Atlanta to create his own life, and he became like a badass in this like northern pack something, and he came back to avenge the death of the murder of the person that Julie is investigating. And both of them have now new aliases, and they look a bit different, and and them finding their way to each other, even it is a bit antagonistic at the beginning because there's some resentment for leaving and not saying goodbye kind of things. Was really fun to read, and I'm very much looking forward to the sequel if it ever comes out. Then the Hugh Dembray offshoot that I read was called Iron and Magic. So in this Kate Daniels world, Hugh Dembray is the warlord of Roland, and Roland is like the big bad from the whole series. And at one point, this is spoilers because it's 10 books before that, Hugh gets sort of pushed aside by Roland, abandoned, you might say. And that really, ruins Hugh, because there's a whole power imbalance between Roland and his subjects. And, when he casts you aside, then, you're fucking broken. So Hugh is fucking broken, and he's found by his cadre, and he basically is in charge of the Iron Dogs, which is like a part of Roland's military, army. And basically he's like, okay, dude, we need to survive somehow because Roland is killing all the Iron Dogs, so you need to get your shit together, and we need to find a place for our army to have a home, and they can, I guess, be there safe and protect stuff. So Hugh goes into an arranged marriage with, I think the girl's name is Alana or Alara, who also has a secret of her own. So basically the arrangement is that they will get married so that there is sort of mystery behind her and her people. And because of this mystery and the position that they held in this, and they have a castle with a moat and shit and some land in a very advantageous position. So of course it's something that other people want. So to have protection and for Hugh to have some place for his army to dwell, they get married, and just this relationship is very antagonistic from the beginning. It really is hate, and the banter that this created was so good. And this book is a bit different in tone from all the other books in this series, because it's a bit more, Hugh is a soldier, a professional soldier, so he's a bit more crass than what we've seen before. So that sort of gives it a different flavor to the whole story. But yeah, I enjoyed the overall plot of them trying to figure out how to protect this castle thing, and how to deal with the various elements that are trying to fuck with them. And the back and forth between Hugh and Alara was so fun to read, and really, really cool book, and I am so much looking forward to the sequel. And now it's time to talk about my favorite book that I read this month. So my favorite book that I read this month is this thing. This is called Od kolivke pa do groba from Antonia Mezanic. And Christina and I do have a review of this book, but it's in Croatian because this book is in Croatian. But it is so good. This is a dark urban fantasy with horror elements. And in it we follow Nana, who works as an educator in like a student's home. And a bunch of students that she takes care of are supernatural creatures from Slavic mythology. It's so good. First of all, I know nothing of Slavic mythology. Didn't know nothing until last year when Christina and I read Igor Rendic's A Town Called River, which we do have a review for, so you can check it out, which is in English, so you can read it too. And now with this one, it builds on everything. It's so good. So basically, the students find body parts in the yard of their student home. And there's the whole mystery of figuring out whose body parts these are. Who did this? Because some of the students do eat humans because of reasons. And just the whole thing was really such a fun read. And I really, really enjoyed it. If it gets translated to English, I will tell you immediately so you guys can read it because it's so much fun. And look how awesome the cover is. That is so great. Anyway. Dark urban fantasy, horror elements, Slavic mythology, really, really so good. I liked it so much that I went and bought myself a physical copy. So those are all the books that I've read in the month of January. If you've read any of the books that I have and you want to share your thoughts down below, please do so. There are some links in the description box for you to check out. If you like this video, please press the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Press the bell button if you want to get notifications for every new video that comes out. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the new video. Bye!